Hello, I'm Gordon Lang, editor of CameraLabs.com. I'd like to give you a brief video tour around the Canon EF-S 15-85mm lens. Here it is, the 15-85mm. This is designed as a general purpose zoom lens for Canon's range of EF-S compatible DSLRs. Now that means that this lens will work on just about any Canon body available today apart from the ancient 10D or anything in the 5D or 1D series. Basically, if your Canon DSLR already has an EF-S lens, then this one will work on it absolutely no problem. I've got it mounted here on an EOS 7D and it's a great match for this body. This lens is designed for anyone who wants to step up from a standard kit zoom in terms of optical quality and also features. So, without further ado, let's take a closer look at some of the highlights of this lens. I'll start with coverage. The EF-S 15-85mm delivers an equivalent focal length of 24-136mm, which takes you all the way from decent wide-angle coverage for capturing big views or cramped spaces, to telephoto for a closer look at distant details or for portrait work. This lens is the successor to the popular EF-S 17-85mm, and both lenses share the same maximum focal length of 85mm. The big difference then lies at the wide-angle end, 15 versus 17mm, or in equivalent terms, 24 versus 27mm. Now that doesn't sound like a great deal, but it could in fact make a bigger difference than you think in practice. To put it in perspective, here's a photo taken with a 15-85mm fully zoomed out to 15mm. The red frame that you see represents what you'd capture with the 17-85 fully zoomed out to 17mm. There's an even bigger difference when you compare it to a lens which starts at 18mm or an equivalent of 29mm. On this image, the red frame now represents what you'd capture with the 18-55 or the 18-135mm when both lenses are fully zoomed out. And again, this image was generated by overlaying actual images. This really is the difference you'd see in practice. So clearly the big advantage of this new zoom lens is its considerably wider angle coverage, which is absolutely ideal if you're into photographing expansive landscapes, large buildings, cramped interiors, or even big group shots. It's ideal when you find yourself in a situation where you literally can't step back any further. The EF-S 15-85mm features image stabilization, or IS for short, and like other Canon lenses, it's an optical system, so you'll see that reassuring stabilization effect through the viewfinder when you're composing your images. You can see how effective the image stabilization is in practice in my review over at CameraLabs.com. The EF-S 15-85mm is a little shorter and a little wider than the earlier 17-85. This gives it a stubbier appearance, and it's also a little heavier by 100 grams. When you've got it mounted on a body like the 7D or a 50D or one of Canon's other semi-pro DSLRs, it's balanced absolutely perfectly, although it can feel a little large or front heavy when mounted on one of their entry-level models. So if you do have one of the Rebel series of cameras or one of the cheaper DSLRs in Canon's range, you may want to try it out in person as it could be a little bit too big and heavy. The EF-S 15-85mm is equipped with two rings on its barrel, a zoom ring at the top and below that a manual focusing ring. In use, the manual focusing ring feels very smooth, in fact a little smoother than that on the 17-85mm, although that could be due to the fact that this is a newer sample. And below this you'll notice the focus distance window. As I zoom the upper ring here to its maximum focal length of 85mm, you'll see that the lens will hold its position. However, as I begin to zoom out gradually, as you reach the 50mm, the actual 50mm mark, you'll see that creep will kick in. It's just going to start right about now. And there you see the lens falling back under its own weight. If I push that back up again, you'll see that as soon as I go beyond 50, you're okay. But as soon as I approach that mark, it will fall back down again. Zoom creep isn't a problem though with the lens fully zoomed out. As you can see here, I've got it pointing vertically downwards, zoomed out to 15mm, and the barrel isn't extending at all. So this won't be a problem if you've got the camera stored or hanging around your neck. Likewise, if you've got it fully zoomed into 85mm and pointing vertically upwards, again, it manages to stay perfectly in place. So it's only an issue between those focal lengths of around 50 to 24mm. There it goes. The EF-S 15 to 85mm has a fairly average focal ratio of f3.5 to 5.6. If you want something brighter than that, you should be considering perhaps either the EF-S 17 to 55mm zoom that has a constant f2.8 aperture throughout its range, or perhaps a fixed prime lens like one of Canon's 50mm lenses. As you'd expect for its premium status, the EF-S 15 to 85mm is equipped with a USM focusing motor that's both quick and pretty quiet in operation. Here's how it looks and sounds in practice. Now for comparison, here's the EF-S 18 to 135mm lens that sadly is not equipped with USM focusing. Notice the difference in the sound, but also the speed. If we step back from the 18 to 135mm, you'll also notice that its manual focusing ring, this time at the end of the lens barrel, also rotates when it autofocuses. This doesn't happen with the 15 to 85mm. As you autofocus with this lens, the manual focusing ring stays stationary. And this lens also offers full-time manual focusing without having to first switch the lens to manual focus. We are pleased to report though that both the 15 to 85 and 18 to 135 don't rotate their front element as you focus. This is good news for users of polarizing filters. Canon's EF-S 15 to 85mm is one of the company's best general purpose zooms so far. It delivers excellent optical quality, a really flexible zoom range, and features like image stabilization and quick and quiet USM focusing. In fact, about the only thing this lens doesn't come with is, you guessed it, a lens hood. Once again, Canon reserves lens hoods only for its top-end L luxury range. You can get them for models like this lens, but they're a separate accessory that you need to buy. So please Canon, in the future, can we have lens hoods with lenses like these? After all, this is a premium model, not a budget lens. Speaking of budget lenses though, if you're after something a bit more affordable, you should maybe consider the EF-S 18 to 135mm. It may not zoom as wide or feature USM focusing, but it does zoom considerably closer and costs roughly half the price. So then the big question is, how does the optical quality compare between these lenses? Well, for that, head on over to my full review at cameralabs.com. There you'll see full comparisons made between the 15 to 85, the 18 to 135, along with the older 17 to 85, and for good measure I've also thrown in the 18 to 55 for anyone who wants to see what they'll get if they want to upgrade from that basic kit zoom. So if you're interested in a high quality Canon general purpose lens, you know where to go now. Head on over to my full review, which as always you'll find at cameralabs.com.